three great rivers carved the Nepal Himalaya into secrets: Karnali, Gandak, Kosi. Explorers followed the gorges, finding shrines, summits, and errors on the maps. But the walls of the range still held mysteries.
It's 2:20 a.m. I'm still buried in the Himalayan Club journals, century-old field notes from the Himalayas. It's like diving deep into the documented history of the Himalayas from the early 1900s. The journals cover everything, from indigenous wisdom, cultural myths, to epic expeditions and groundbreaking discoveries. These forgotten stories are brought to life by synthetic voices in the Himalayan Journals podcast. Subscribe, zone out, binge, and pass it to a fellow mountain junkie.
What held the Nepal Himalaya together across three great rivers, and how did explorers describe the gaps cut through its highest walls? The range, seen on the map and in old reports, offered answers in sections and in names, in summits, counted by the 1,000 feet. The great Himalaya in Nepal was drained by the Karnali, the Gandak, and the Kosi, and by their tributaries. Geographers divided the range into three parts. The Karnali section ran from Api at 23,400 feet on the west to Dhaulagiri at 26,810 feet on the east, near the Kali Gandaki Gorge. The Gandak section stretched from Dhaulagiri, exclusive, to the Ganesh Himal, inclusive, near the Trisuli Gandaki Gorge. The Kosi section lay from the Trisuli Gandaki Gorge to Kangchenjunga, exclusive. The headwaters of the three rivers pierced the Crest zone, carving great massifs that stood as isolated blocks south of the Indo-Tibetan watershed. North of the main axis, a second zone of high summits rose, sometimes in contact with the great Himalayan crest zone, sometimes apart. In the system, excluding the Kangchenjunga group, there were three known summits over 27,000 feet, 7 over 26,000, and 14 over 25,000 feet. In the western Karnali section, the Seti cut back into the great Himalayan zone between the Api Nampa group and Saipal, but not through it. The trough between the two crest zones drained to the Humla Karnali, separated from the Manasarawar Basin by Gurla Mandhata at 25,355 feet. The Humla Karnali, the Mugu Karnali, and the Langu gathered tributaries, then passed diagonally through the great Himalayan axis by separate channels and united near Galwa, in the Jumla district, only 5,000 feet above sea level. These channels were unique for their width and for the section they removed. East of the Karnali, the Beri and the Thuli Beri cut in two, but did not pierce the crest zone. The Seti, the Karnali, the Beri, and their tributaries united before leaving the outer Himalaya and entered India as the Gogra. The central Gandak section carried the tributaries Barigad, Kali, or Krishna Gandaki, Seti Gandaki, Marsyandi, Buri Gandaki, and Trisuli Gandaki. Annapurna and Himalchuli stood here. The Kali Gandaki cut a deep trench through both crest zones in the Mustang Salient and rose within 20 miles of the Tsangpo. The Marsyandi separated Annapurna from Himalchuli, drained a narrow trough behind Annapurna, and cut the southern face of the northern range with glacial ravines. East of the Marsyandi, the two ranges touched again with Manaslu at 26,658 feet, Himalkuli at 25,801 feet, and an unnamed summit at 25,705 feet. East of Himalkuli, the Buri Gandaki cut through both zones, and the Trisuli Gandaki formed a convenient boundary, draining a large area behind the northern zone and rising within 15 miles of the Tsangpo. Between them stood the Ganesh Himal, These rivers joined at Gaugat to form the Narayani, or Great Gandak, then entered India. The eastern Kosi section held 7 principal affluents. The Indrawati did not pierce the Great Himalaya. The Sunkosi did, and as the Pogu drained a considerable area in Tibet. The Tambakosi crossed the southern zone. The Liku Kosi and the head tributaries of the Dud Kosi drained the southern slopes, including the glaciers south of Mount Everest. The Arun cut a gorge east of Makalu at 27,790 feet. Its Tibetan tributaries, the Punggu on the west and the Yarugu on the east, drained an enormous area. The Tamar Kosi cut through the southern zone. Heavy monsoon rain altered the features toward Sikkim, and the 7 rivers united as the Sapt Kosi before entering Bihar. Farther east, in Sikkim and western Bhutan, the rivers kept separate. Gosanthan, or Gosankund, lay about 15,000 feet up the Trisula Gandaki Valley. The 26,291-foot summit named Gosanthan in Tibet had a Tibetan name, Shisha Pangma, and lay on the northern zone. Knowledge improved with surveys in 1924 to 1927, and with distant photographs. The Kali Gandaki Gorge drew human interest as well as physical. Muktinath lay high under the cliffs 6 miles east of Kagbeni, a shrine visited by thousands. Hari Ram, in 1873, crossed to the Bheri Valley southeast of Jumla, followed the Thuli Bheri, crossed the Diji Pass near Mukut Himal, and reached Kagbeni on 7th September. He gave its height as 8,953 feet. He visited Muktinath, noted the spring, the 108 spouts, and the flame at Chumgyarsa. He returned to Kagbeni on the 9th, then on the 10th, followed the Kali Gandak upstream and left the river where the valley narrowed. On the 11th, he went to Kambasumba. On the 12th, he crossed the Chungi Pass to Changrang, the winter residence of the Lo Manthang Raja. On the 13th, he reached Lo Manthang, enclosed by walls, with a palace and a gompa, with traders and revenue recorded. From Mustang, Hari Ram crossed the Photu La on the Tibet-Nepal boundary. The country on either side of the Mustang Salient remained unexplored. The shalagram appeared in abundance along the Kali Gandaki. In a postscript, Captain C.J. Morris warned of inaccuracies in names and positions on the new maps. He maintained that his photographed peak, marked Machapucharre, was correctly identified. He noted the local usage of the name. The conclusion held that the map spelling and placement were incorrect, and that Machapucharre was likely a great summit of the Annapurna Himal, possibly Annapurna one. The positions and heights stood on triangulation, but the names were not yet certain.